But I think the hardest times to rein it in and rise above, for me at least, are instances when I feel like I'm being unfairly criticized or condescended to or taken advantage of. In cases like that, my instinct is to defend myself, to fight back and to say, you can't talk to me like that. You can't do that to me. And I know I'm not alone in that. It's human nature to want to speak up for yourself. The question, though, is how? How do we stand up for ourselves in a way that is dignified and reverential to God, in whose presence we stand? The Talmud says, one who is insulted but does not insult back is as mighty as the sun. It's sage advice indeed, but it isn't easy. Now, we've struggled with this since the dawn of time. I've recently been studying an amazing case from Jewish history that teaches us how to put this principle into practice. The events of the case took place about 800 years ago in Egypt. It shows you just how long human beings have been struggling with speaking up for yourself. A local judge in Egypt wrote a letter to the head of the Egyptian community, the Jewish community at the time, whose name was Rabbi Avraham. He was the son of the great Maimonides. In his letter to Rabbi Avraham, the judge complained that he was being mistreated by a local nobleman who was more powerful than he was. This nobleman, it seems, was a classic bully. He liked to throw his weight around. He liked to intimidate people. The judge told Rabbi Avraham that the nobleman had insulted him repeatedly and had attempted to force him out of his job and ban him from the community. Now, it's clear from the way the judge writes that he felt besieged. He wanted to fight this guy. He wanted justice. And who can blame him? You know, we've been there before. We know what that's like. Rabbi Avraham's response to him is a work of moral genius. It's really a timeless lesson in how to act with forbearance and good character when we're attacked or criticized by somebody like this. Rabbi Avraham begins by validating the judge's feelings. He says, I know this nobleman you're talking about. And you know what? You're right about him. He is not a nice guy. I have experienced the same behavior from him myself. But then Rabbi Avraham goes on to urge the judge to calm down and act with restraint. He says, even though this man is behaving inappropriately toward you and you have every right to be angry, don't let him bait you into doing or saying things you know are disrespectful. You have to protect his dignity, even if he doesn't care about yours. You know what the upright path is, so stick to it. God is watching. Rabbi Avraham offers the judge 3 pieces of advice that I think can help us in our own struggles with the difficult people in our lives. His first piece of advice is just keep your head down and let the truth reveal itself. Think before you react. Oftentimes, we bear some responsibility in the conflict too. As we'll say over and over again in the coming days, we should not be so stiff-necked and arrogant as to say that we are perfect and have not sinned. So we have to look inward. And when we do that honestly, the truth will reveal itself. If we're in the wrong, then we have to acknowledge that and apologize. If we're not in the wrong, that too will become clear through honest reflection. But fighting back may not always be the answer. Sometimes fighting back just baits the other person even more, especially if he or she is someone who likes a fight, or the kind of person who's unwilling or unable to admit fault. I know, believe me, we want to fight back when we're attacked. And we feel disappointed in ourselves when we don't. But we need to do it in a way that won't turn up the temperature, because that's just never good for anyone. Engaging in battle probably won't change their behavior, but we may end up doing or saying things that cause pain or damage to our own reputation. So be patient and have faith. Our sages say that falsehood is flimsy and it will collapse eventually. But truth stands eternal. It may take longer than we'd like. We may not even be around to see it. But the truth will reveal itself. Now, I admit that's a matter of faith. But if we choose to believe it, then we'll see that it's not up to us to change or defeat the toxic person. Our only job is to act with integrity and authenticity, because after all, we can't control their behavior, but we can control ours. Standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean fighting. In fact, sometimes standing up for yourself is about learning not to fight, but just to keep your head down, act with integrity, and let the truth reveal itself. Rabbi Abraham's second bit of advice is this. Sometimes, after taking an honest inventory of ourselves and of the situation, and this is unfortunate and perhaps harsh, but sometimes you may have to accept that the problem really is them, and you're just never going to change that. Rabbi Avraham tells the judge, this nobleman has been around a long time. He's always been this way. And I hate to tell you, but as long as he's here, he's going to keep doing it. Now, many of us know people like this. Maybe it's a family member, or a colleague, or a neighbor, even a friend. They may be good people who have a tendency to be insensitive and insulting sometimes, but time and again, they say and do things that are just hurtful. They make snide comments. They criticize. They start fights for no reason. They can be just plain mean. And every time we have one of these run-ins with them, we come away feeling exasperated and defeated. And we tend to internalize these encounters, and they eat away at us, and it's hard to let go. But it's really destructive to our spirit to carry all that around. And honestly, it's unkind and unfair to ourselves to hold on to the idea that we must have done something to provoke this kind of behavior. Sometimes it really is just them. Of course, this doesn't mean we don't have flaws of our own. We do. And it's no excuse for us not to look honestly at our own behavior. We should always be doing that. But sometimes these conflicts keep happening over and over again because that's just how they are, and it's never going to change. Once we accept that, we can stop blaming ourselves for something that really has nothing to do with us and everything to do with them. Just taking that step is a big part of standing up for yourself. Rabbi Abraham's final insight into dealing with difficult people is this: stop giving them power over your life. In some cases, this may mean just getting out of their orbit. Leave, walk away, don't subject yourself to it anymore. If the situation is physical abuse, then leaving is absolutely the only option. Period. We have to leave. But in cases of difficult people, leaving may not be desirable or even possible. If this person is a family member or a friend, we probably want to have a relationship with them to some extent. At a minimum, we're probably going to have some interactions from time to time. If it's a business associate or a colleague, then we're going to have to deal with that person pretty regularly. But that doesn't mean that we have to give them power over our emotional well-being. Toxic people only have power over us when we give it to them, when we let their words and actions penetrate into our psyche and undermine our self-esteem. So if we're the ones who give them their power, then the good news is we are the ones who can take it away from them. We can set boundaries for our relationship and say, I love you, or I respect you, but I'm just not going to be treated that way. Respect has to be a basic condition of our relationship. If we can identify the topics or the circumstances that tend to trigger the hurtful behavior, we can keep a respectful distance from those things. And when they come up, we can simply excuse ourselves or say, I think for the sake of our relationship, it's better if we just don't go there. And if we can accept that it really is them and not us, we might be able to distance ourselves a little bit emotionally and not let their words and actions affect us as much as they do now. It's not about rolling over and letting them walk all over us. We can and should speak up for what we need. The key is to do it firmly, but respectfully. In encounters like these, I think we become so determined and so focused on not letting the other person win. We want to be the ones who win. But our goal shouldn't be revenge. Our goal should be peace of mind and a happy life for ourselves. So what that means is we have to redefine what it means to win. If we're able to act with dignity and integrity in the face of derision, that's a win for us. If we can refuse to give them power over our well-being or just get out of their toxic orbit altogether, that's a win for us. If we can remember that one who is insulted but doesn't insult back is as mighty as the sun, and hold to that and live by it in those heated moments, that is a win for us. And so we pray,